I hope you're having a super fantastic sparkling day. Welcome to Before the Dirt Nap podcast number 1861. And as you see, I have an awesome guest with us this evening. This is Alessia Tenebruso, and she is the CEO and founder of One Girl Travel. And I have to tell you, she has some phenomenal content on Instagram and Facebook and like across the social media platform things, but mainly Instagram, isn't it?
Yes, I focus mostly on Instagram.
Excellent. So, Alessia, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely our pleasure. Now, you want to know about living your best life now? You got to listen to what this girl has to say, because we're all about here living your best life now. And she's got this really cool workshop coming up. So just scan the QR code up here and you can sign up for her free masterclass, which is on the 18th.
The 18th at 6 p.m.
Eastern, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to see if I can sneak on there. But Alessia, how did you get into solo travel?
Oh, okay. That's a loaded question, right? So I began solo traveling in 2012. I had just gotten out of a mentally abusive relationship. It was my first adult relationship. And when it ended, I'm like, I don't know who I am anymore. I felt like I just completely lost myself. I lost my confidence. I didn't know what I enjoyed anymore. So I just felt lost. And back then I was super shy, super timid, didn't do anything by myself. And I'm like, all right, what's the thing that is going to help me figure out who I am as a person? I'm like, I need to stretch myself. And the furthest place I could possibly stretch myself was going on a trip alone. So I'm like, I just have to try. And I decided to go to Florida. So it wasn't a huge stretch. I wasn't hopping over to Europe for the first time, but I went to Florida. I've never traveled anywhere by myself. Like I wouldn't go to the mall or to a McDonald's alone at that point. So for me to get on a plane and go, exactly, like for me to get on a plane and go to Florida alone, a place I was familiar with, but never went by myself, and eat by myself and do things by myself, like that was a huge stretch for me. And from the moment I got on my flight to Florida, I sat down and this guy next to me was around the same age as me, and he was a solo traveler. And never in my life have I spoke to anybody on a plane before up to that point. And the entire flight, he just shared all of his stories with me, showed me pictures, like we were just talking about solo traveling. And I'm like, all right, this is meant to be. And I get chills every time I talk about this because it was just so powerful in that moment. I felt very guided by the universe. And every time I interacted with somebody on that trip, like it just felt like people were put in my path that were kind and that were encouraging. And it just made me realize, like, I want to do more of this. I want to experience more. And that was the first time I dined by myself on that trip. I did a fishing excursion by myself, made friends on that trip. And
Did you catch anything?
No, we all got seasick. We should not have been out on those waters. The entire boat got seasick, so it was a journey. But yeah, that was interesting. But after that, I'm like, all right, like what else can I do? Like I want more of this. And so back then there really wasn't a lot of resources for solo travel. I had Under the Tuscan Sun and Eat, Pray, Love. Like
okay.
those
love
are my
those
two
books.
resources, right?
And the movies.
Yeah, because like now there's blogs, there's websites, there's references all over the place. But back then there really wasn't talked about. And so I'm like, all right, what's a safe way for me to travel alone and see a lot of things? So I decided to go on my first cruise. And that was my first big trip. I am such a cruiser. I'm actually hosting my first group cruise next year. And yeah, I'm so excited for it. So yeah, and that just like every trip I would just keep going, keep expanding. And eventually I went to Europe by myself. And now it is my full-time business to do this.
That is awesome. I love that. And you've got so many different stories along the way. And I always tell people when you go traveling, if something goes wrong, your trip, your vacation has now turned into an adventure.
Yes.
And when something goes wrong, you're going to remember that trip more clearly than you will one where everything went smoothly, everything went right. It was just another trip. It's going to get lost in all those, You'll remember bits and pieces of it, but the one you're going to remember the most details on are the ones where something went wrong.
Exactly.
And 9 times out of 10, when you start retelling the stories, the way you tell them is going to bring it to life for other people, and you're going to have people in stitches.
Yeah. And it's all, it's all an experiment.
Oh, yeah.
Like everything, as long as you learn a lesson, it's a win.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you do. You just learn as you go and figure it out.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And what else was I going to say? Oh, yeah, the fishing thing. I love fishing, but I have to have somebody who's like, I will bait the hook and I will cast the hook and I will reel that fish in. But somebody has to take it off the hook, has to dress it, and then I will cook it.
Yeah.
There's all the scaling and the degutting, and all that messy stuff because I don't deal with dead creatures.
Yeah, no, I'm not a fan. Worms I can handle on a hook, but that's about it.
I even thought at one point of like with living in the RV, that's solo travel completely for me since my husband passed, and it's a whole nother adventure, a whole nother story. We'll talk about that one another day. But I always thought about, maybe because they had this place we stayed where they had nice lakes, you could go fishing. But what if I just got a fishing line with no hooks, just with the sinkers on them, and just cast them out there so I could just sit there and fish?
Okay.
Not worry about catching anything. And I thought, then knowing my luck, a fish will come along and swallow the thing, and now I've got to deal with a fish on the end of a hookless line.
You'll be doing the Heimlich to the fish, trying to get it out.
Yeah, that's not going to go over very well. So my next question for you is, it's about what does living your life to the fullest before the dirt nap mean to you?
Okay. So it means not waiting. That's a big part of all of this. I see so many people, but women especially, waiting on somebody to join them, or waiting on a smaller body, a bigger paycheck, different life circumstances, and life's passing them by.
Yeah.
So the big thing is like to just live life the way you want to live it without waiting on other people. To just go after whatever it is you desire and embrace it and do it. If you're scared, do it alone and live your life. So that's truly like living your life before the dirt nap, like living life to the fullest and
I want to
enjoying
slide
every
in
moment.
at the end and go, wow, what a ride.
What?
I want to slide in at the end going, wow, what a ride.
Exactly.
So we actually have a question that's come up from
Dom.
Dominic, and he would like to know that he'll be semi-retired in 2025. Do you include men?
Yeah, so I know Dom. So hi Dom, glad you're here. So I'm hosting a group cruise in March, which includes everyone. So men, couples, families, solo, kids, everybody is invited to this cruise. So come with me. We'll have so much fun. My One Girl Travel Club is exclusively for women, but I do coach men on the side also on 101. So I do include men also.
So sign up for the masterclass.
Yeah, come on the masterclass. The masterclass is for everybody. It's about just embracing your life and truly making the world your playground. Before the dirt nap, enjoying your life. Yeah.
Great question, Dom, and thank you so much for joining us tonight on the live and asking the question. Truly, truly appreciate it. How are you helping women and some men make the most of their lives?
Okay. And that's a loaded question also. I feel like to make the most of their lives is equipping them with the tools they need for their mindset, like what's holding them back from doing the things that they want to do. Because it all comes down to mindset and what we tell ourselves, our limiting beliefs about our capabilities and what's available to us. So equipping them with those tools is one, and then actually helping them take action when they have those tools and go out and doing it. I'm personally I'm able to learn by doing rather than, I can research all I want, or for anybody, you can research all you want, but the actual growth happens when you're doing it.
Absolutely.
So encouraging people to actually do it, to try. And like I said, you can't fail. You're just going to learn and you're going to just pivot and figure it out along the way.
Yes, I come across a lot of people who turn around and when they find out I'm from New Zealand, they're like, oh, I've always wanted to go there. I said, so what's stopping you?
Yeah.
That's my very first question. When they say, I've always wanted to go, I go, what's stopping you? Or I ask them, when are you going to go?
Yeah.
I actually want them to put a date on it. Yeah. And Yeah, and Dom says, I agree. Being afraid is scary, but also exciting. Absolutely,
Yeah.
totally agree. Like my first cruise after my husband passed, I went on he passed in September of 2017. My first cruise, now I had been on a couple of cruises by myself without him,
Hmm.
but when he was alive, it was a different thing. All of a sudden, he's not there anymore. So I can't text him or message him every day while I'm on the cruise ship. And so my first cruise with him was May. So that's what, 8 months since he had passed. And that was scary. And our original trip for May was to be on Celebrity Millennium going through the Panama Canal from Fort Lauderdale to San Diego. And I said, and our final payment was coming up in January. And I thought to myself, I'm not ready to go on my first 14-night cruise so soon after he passed and visiting countries that I had never been to before. That was my block.
Hmm.
So what I decided to do was switch it from that to Celebrity Solstice and do the Inside Passage in Alaska, leaving out of Vancouver, doing the Inside Passage and ending in Seattle. And that to me was a way of closing out our travel time that we had done together, because our very first cruise in 2009 was on Norwegian Star, on the Inside Passage in and out of Seattle. And so I thought, well, this is going to places that I know, and I can go look at the stuff that I wanted to go back and see again, because we'd always talked about going back to Alaska. And so that's what I did. But the hardest part for me, I've done a lot of solo travel before I met Brad. I've I did a lot of solo travel. I didn't go to Europe though. I was just across the pond from New Zealand to Australia. We just call it across the pond there, even though there's a whole sea between us. But I didn't actually have an issue traveling by myself. It was, how was I going to handle it emotionally doing this
Hmm.
without Brad? And so we're there at muster drill. And for those who don't know, that's your safety briefing on board the ship that you are required to attend. And they will actually kick you off the ship if you do not attend. Um, and so I'm standing there with all these couples around me. I'm looking everywhere. There was not another single person to be seen. It was all couples. And they're standing, close together and hugging and holding hands and talking quietly and being all romantic. And all of a sudden, this huge tsunami of grief hit me of, this is my life now. Brad and I will never travel again.
Hmm.
And all I wanted to do was just become a pile of goo on the floor. But I knew I had to hold. And so that 40 minutes was the longest 40 minutes of my life, when I stood there trying to contain these emotions, not even paying any attention to what the brief was, but just trying to keep myself composed in front of it, because I did not want to deal with that in front of strangers.
Hmm.
And you know how on a cruise ship where muster drill is, the rule is don't go to the elevators. They're always full.
Yes.
I tell you, I don't even know what happened, but as soon as they released us, I went straight, and like this wave of people just opened up, and I went straight out to the lobby, and an elevator door opened right in front of me. And it was an empty elevator. So I just went in and pressed my button. I was only going up 3 flights,
Hmm.
but I just did not want to deal with the stairs. And usually on 3 flights, I'm like, I'll take the stairs. Yeah, not that day. So I stuck myself in the back corner there and just hid back there, tried to make conversation with people, but wasn't really feeling it.
Hmm.
And just literally ran down the corridor to my stateroom and got in the door and closed the door and just became this pile of goo in there. That was my hardest. That was the hardest thing I had to do. And then after that, it was sort of like, okay, we're not going to be spending the cruise inside this cabin, because I was worried about grief hitting me at any stage. We're going to go out there and we're going to meet people. So I had Casey Kiwi, my little
Yes.
mascot, tucked him under my arm, and off we went. He went with me everywhere on the ship, and he would sit there on the table when we're having dinner and everything. And he was our. I would tell you, most of the crew by the end of that cruise knew who Casey Kiwi was. In fact, Casey Kiwi made more friends with the crew than he did with other passengers.
Funny.
But I got through it, and I did it, and I
Yeah.
thought, okay, when's my next cruise? And as it happened to be that December of that year. And that one I was fine with, because there was people on board that I knew.
Hmm.
Whereas I was on Celebrity Solstice, I knew nobody.
Yeah.
So that was me stretching after. And then, of course, I go and buy an RV and go tripping around North America
Yeah.
in an RV for 3.5 years.
Yeah. But that's the thing, though. You have to take that first scary step into the unknown so you can experience past that, because growth is on the other side of our comfort zones, right? Like, so
Yeah.
you endured it, you went there, and you felt the feelings, but you got past it. And like,
Mhm.
it's not going to be comfortable at first at all. Like
Mhm.
it, I had many trips where I was nervous and scared. Like it took years to get my confidence up where now I can go anywhere. I can do
Mhm.
anything by myself, no problem. But it was practice over and over again and just embracing the discomfort because you just grow as a person and you also get to know yourself better too.
Yeah.
And I think it also helps you with your self-love. You have more
Mhm.
compassion for yourself. You get to really know yourself deeply when you spend that time by yourself,
Yep.
and it's so powerful. So like kudos to you for doing that because it like you were able to embrace your life in this new chapter because you took that first step.
Yeah. Now, have you ever had anybody come up to you? This always amazed me when I was driving the RV. Like I'd be setting up on the campsite with the RV,
Mhm.
hooking up the power and the sewer line and the water line and everything else. And but what I found funny was that people would come up and go, and I had a 32-foot RV Class A, so
Mhm.
the bus type ones, and I had driven that there. I had backed it into the park, into the space, or I put it as a pull through where you'd come in from the back and move to the front. And I'll be there hooking up the utilities, and people come past and go, "Oh my gosh, did you drive this by yourself?" And I'll go, "Yeah." They go, "Oh, you're so brave." Did
Yeah.
you ever get any questions like that when people found out you're traveling by
Uh,
yourself?
I don't know why the "you're so brave" thing, like, triggers me a little bit because I'm like, "You're brave too, you can do this too."
Yeah.
I'm not special, you can do this, you're
Mhm.
just like everyone's capable of doing this. But yeah, all the time, but it's dining by myself, going on a trip by myself, all of that, like, I think people are, one, curious about your situation that you're there by yourself, um, but also people sometimes feel like they're not capable of doing it, so they're reflecting their doubts onto you.
Mhm.
And knowing that, like, okay, I'm doing this for me and I'm confident enough myself to move forward, even though I might be uncomfortable, it's so powerful. And I'm sorry, I see Dom's comments, and
Yeah.
Dom has personally seen my transformation. And yeah, it is powerful to grow through doing things that just strengthen you and challenge you.
And a lot of the times when you're going through those situations, like, my husband had cancer for 9 years, 8 months, and 3 days. And we had that whole battle going on the whole time. But what you don't realize at the time is how much growing you're doing as you go through these things.
Hmm.
It's not till, sorry, my dog,
It's okay.
her first day home again.
Aw.
Yeah. So she's just wanting to make sure that mama's okay. We're okay, sweet girl. She's my emotional support animal. She's very good at that too. Um, but you at the time you don't realize how much growing you have done till you get well beyond the other side,
Oh
and you
yeah.
look back and go, "Oh, I was able to handle that. I did handle that. I was." You're such a good girl. You go lay down. Mama's okay. You can go lay down. Okay, good girl.
Yeah,
Yeah.
reflecting. I think it's so important also to take that time to reflect
Yeah.
and celebrate the
Hmm.
growth that you've made along, like, how whatever time period is applicable to your life, but to celebrate yourself and to honor all of the things that you've overcome. We
Absolutely.
should all be celebrating ourselves as much as possible.
Yeah, one question Brad used to ask me often, I think he was expecting me to change the answer and it never changed. He said, "If you could go back in time and change anything, would you?" I went, "Absolutely not. I
Hmm.
wouldn't change one moment." And he's sort of like, "What, not even me getting cancer?" I said, "Not even you getting cancer." And he's like, "Why?" I said, "Look at all the blessings that we have had along the way because of cancer. Look at who we are today." I said, "We would not be these people today had it not been for cancer. We would not have been through this growth that we've been through had it not been for cancer. There are a lot of people that are now in our lives because of cancer."
Hmm.
And he was sort of like, "Oh." But when I was doing his eulogy at his funeral, I said, if somebody was to ask me that question today, I would just ask for more time.
Yes.
But apart from that, I wouldn't go back and if people ask me that today, I wouldn't ask for more time now because I wouldn't be the person I am now. because of all the challenges I have gone through, the growth, the learning. And I've just, I always promised him that I would keep moving forward. I wouldn't stagnate. And when the times I did, I remember that I made that promise to him to keep moving forward. So I'd get myself up, put on my big girl panties, and off I'd go again for the next challenge.
It's amazing.
Yeah. But it's just sort of like, what is somebody else? Where is the place you have visited? Oh, I've been a lot of places. I've been a lot of places. I've been to Australia by myself, done Sydney and Melbourne by myself. Love Melbourne. That was my jam. I went to Europe with my husband when he was alive. We did Europe. We did a river cruise there. I've been to 26 states, I think it is, in my RV by myself. Best place. Oh, that's like asking me what my favorite book and movie is. That is an impossible question because every place has their own best of.
It's true.
It is. And, where was the best cathedral that you saw? And where was the best bridge that you saw? Everything has its own best of when you're doing it when you're looking at it that way. I absolutely love Prague. The city Prague was absolutely gorgeous. I loved the tour that we did through that. Loved the astronomical, is that what it was called? The astronomical clock that they have there. Budapest. Oh my gosh, I love Budapest. We got to spend 3 nights in Budapest at the end of our river cruise because we were blacked out from flying on Friday, Saturday, Sunday with our airline miles. And so we spent 3 nights in Budapest in December, a couple of weeks before Christmas, and had a blast. And we got the 72-hour pass in Budapest, and that allowed us unlimited transportation on their trams, on their trains, on their buses. We went everywhere. Loved Budapest. Absolutely loved it. And they gave some things you got free entry, some things you got a discount on it because you had this little card. And we had a blast in Budapest. And we were over there for the Christmas market. So,
nice.
Yes. So we learned that the Christmas markets at night change because all the tourists are gone. So all of the locals come out, and it's this big community party every night.
Fun.
And more booths are open at night than there are during the day. There's more food options out there. There's more handcrafts that are out there as well. So we had a blast out there.
That sounds amazing.
Oh, it was. I absolutely loved it. And then in where did we go? Vienna. Went to the Schönbrunn Palace. That was unbelievable. And of course, my favorite thing is secret rooms and secret passages. And this palace was full of them. And the tour guide will point out the entrance to the secret passage and certain rooms and things, because that's how the servants moved around the castle, around the palace, was in these secret passages and things. So they weren't seen in the hallways and stuff.
That's awesome.
But yeah, every place has its own thing. So you can't really pick one best place. If I really want to be biased, I can say New Zealand. But then Alaska's pretty close because it's very similar in topography to New Zealand.
Mm-hmm. See, I have a favorite. Scotland is my favorite place in the world.
I haven't been there yet.
Oh my God.
Yet I have big, strong Scottish roots there.
I love Scotland. It is my absolute favorite. Yeah.
Dominic loves the backstories.
Yeah, and I've never been to Portugal. That's on my list. Dom said he wants to retire there. That's awesome.
I've got a few friends that want to retire in Portugal.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that live there.
Portugal.
Yeah, a lot of people are moving to Portugal.
What's the attraction? Are they paying people to move to Portugal?
I don't.
Now, for those that are wine lovers, I understand the Douro River has a really good winery, a lot of good wineries along it there from Portugal into Spain. And you can do the river cruises. There's a wine river cruises that you can do there.
Fun.
On the Douro River for those that like their wine. I don't drink, so I just point out the good spots that I've heard of. Let people find out for themselves. So what other advice could you give people who are looking at traveling by themselves? My advice is, figure out what your dream vacation is and put it on the calendar.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great advice to schedule it.
Yes, because once it's scheduled, the brain's going to start figuring out, okay, you want to go on there? Let's get it done.
Yeah.
And the brain starts working towards that.
Yeah. I would say if you've never solo traveled before and you desire to start solo traveling, I would say just start doing, like, you've never dined before, like go take yourself out for lunch.
Hmm.
Like do turtle steps. Go get a local hotel room for a weekend and go into a hotel by yourself and just pay attention to your thoughts while you're there. Like you can start embracing solo travel at home. You don't need a passport to start. You just these little steps, and even if you don't desire to solo travel and you just want to recharge your soul, like go and do things by yourself and just work your way up and expand yourself each time. Like I couldn't imagine going from never doing anything by myself to going to Europe alone. Like for me, that would be way too much of a drastic stretch. But for me to go to Florida, that was great. That was my
Yeah.
first step. The cruise, then more cruises, then Europe. Like I worked my way up and I learned as I went, and I gradually grew as a person also with each trip. So
Yes.
I would say just start doing it and
Hmm.
start embracing the solo travel lifestyle and taking time for yourselves and enjoying your own company, because that takes work also to truly enjoy your own company when you're at a table by yourself or at night in a hotel room when there's no distractions. That's when the real work goes into it.
Yeah. And sometimes just even when you're in a hotel, it's like, do I order room service or do I go downstairs to the restaurant? Do I go to a
Go
local
out.
restaurant? And it's always get your butt out the door.
Yeah. Go
Doesn't
out
matter if it's
unless
in the hotel or if it's in a bar nearby or a restaurant nearby, just get out. But I have this thing that's called the staycation challenge.
mm,
And it's all about turning your house into your hotel or going to a hotel in a nearby city or town and just becoming a tourist within that. Now, I
yes.
like to teach people to be a traveler rather than a tourist. But, if I was to turn up on your doorstep tomorrow morning and say, show me your local area, what would you do? What would you show me? And if you don't know these spots and yet you're from this area and you meet people in other parts of the world that will ask you questions, excuse me, thank you, in other parts of the world, um, and they're saying, oh, I want to come to your area. What is there to see and do?
Mm-hmm.
And one of my favorite things with Uber drivers is I had to go to Milwaukee for a weekend for an event. And so the Uber driver's taking me over to Walmart because I had to go get a second bag to bring it home. I bought too much. And I said, oh, I've only got today in Milwaukee. What is there to go see and do that is nowhere else in the country that you can see nowhere else? And he says, oh, you want to go see the domes? And I'm like, what are the domes? And so he told me about them. And I was just like, that's fantastic. So when I got the Uber back to the hotel, I said to the guy, I says, now what's in Milwaukee that I can go see and do that I find nowhere else in the United States? What is one of your local attraction points? And he's sort of like, I don't know. He had no clue.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is why it's important to know your area so that when people, and like in the 80s, there was a commercial in New Zealand that was, don't leave home till you've seen the country. And it was about this guy that was tripping around different areas and finding out that the stuff was back at home.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the things that he had there. And and there was people that went up that did an Alaskan cruise. So I found about Alaskan cruises. There was family members of mine that went to Alaska and they were on a cruise ship and they're turning around and they're going, wow, they were in the fjords, cruising the fjords. And they go, wow, this is just like being in a fjordland. And they're sort of like, yeah, this kind of reminds me of, and they'd start naming off the sounds that we have down there, which are actually fjords. And another couple from New Zealand turned to them and says, really? They had New Zealand's small. Yeah. You can drive. I mean, it's not like it's taking great big trips. My first trip solo was to get in my car that I had just purchased from my parents because they had a second car they were getting rid of. So I purchased it. And I drove myself up to Palmerston North, which was an hour and a half up the road from where my parents currently lived. And I spent a week up there. Yes, I stayed with family up there, but I would take myself out every day and go and visit different museums and stuff that was only in Palmerston North. And I happened to have been born in Palmerston North, so I wanted to see I found the house my parents were living in when I was born. I found another address and all this. So it was going down memory lane as well, but it was taking myself, and that was my first trip by myself. Mm-hmm. So, and I felt really invigorated after that. No one had been there. So
I love that you're talking about being a tourist at home. I actually have a course on that in my membership where I encourage my members to go out and explore their their area to go be a tourist. I say it all the time.
I wrote a book about it.
Did you really? I love it. Like, it's because there's so much available to us and we don't take
Absolutely.
advantage. I live in New York, right? I live on Long
Oh,
Island, and I have Manhattan, a 40-minute train ride. Have I ever done a double-decker bus tour in New York? Never. Meanwhile, every country I go to, that's the first thing I do. Never did it here. Never did I go to the Statue of Liberty and like do a boat tour there. I'm like, I would do that in a heartbeat if I was like visiting somewhere else. I'm like, why am I not doing that here? And even on Long Island, there's so many places that I haven't gone to. And there's a lot to see on Long Island. Like, there's
yeah.
a lot here. And I've been making it a point to just go explore new places instead of going to the same place all the time. Go to new places, try new things, go explore, have fun. Like, that's what making the world your playground's about for me. Like, going out and just having a good time and exploring and embracing everything that you want to do and everything that you never thought you would do, and just trying it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Dom's asking, how much is an average cost for a trip? It depends on what you're doing and where you're going.
Yeah.
It depends on when you book the flight.
Yeah.
If you're on a cruise, when you book it. If you go through a travel professional, they'll be able to help get you some really good deals. My dog's just gone zooming around the house.
It's fine.
I don't know what she's doing. It's really dependent on what you're going to be doing and where you're going to be going and what type of hotels you want to stay in. Are you going to be somebody that just does backpacking and stays at youth hostels? Are you somebody that wants to stay in five-star resorts or hotels? Are you somebody who wants to stay sort of like 3-class? Now, I have to tell you, 3-star hotels in the US are very different from 3-star hotels in Europe. The ones in the 3 stars in Europe are more like a 4-star here in the US. So just to give you some frame of reference, if you're looking at 3-star hotels, just bump it up to what's a 4-star hotel in the US, and you've basically got the equivalent if you want to do it that way.
Yeah, that's a good fact.
But it's dependent on what you want to do and where you want to go. Now you also have to look at what time of year you're traveling as well,
mm-hmm.
because when the schools are out, things are more expensive. And if you're going down south to the southern hemisphere, to Australia and New Zealand, their summer vacation is at Christmas time and New Year. So that is the busiest tourist season, and that's when it's the most expensive because the kids are out. I don't know what she's looking at. That's when the kids are out of school, so the costs are a little higher during that time. So you have to look at, when you're going to be traveling, what's the best time to travel. If you find a really good travel professional, they will know this information. They'll be able to pass it on to you. And you can get some really good deals if you go just a little bit outside of that prime time.
Yeah, that's my favorite time to travel is shoulder season.
Yeah.
I do not want the crowds. If I'm going to Europe, I want to go right before it gets too hot because I don't want to be sweating to death. Like, I prefer,
and the frizzy hair from the humidity.
Yeah, I prefer shoulder season. I'll take that any day over the busy seasons.
And have you ever done a repositioning cruise?
No, that's on my list of things to do.
Yeah, those can be awesome.
I would love to do that. I want to do like a month-long cruise. That's ideally what I want to do.
I had clients one time who had to go to some place in the south of France. They looked at using their air miles, and it was going to cost them, with the just the tax portion of it, was going to cost them $1,400 per person on taxes.
Wow.
Plus the flights and everything else. We ended up getting them, and unfortunately, because of their time constraints, they couldn't go. They couldn't do it this way, but we basically had them fly on their air miles from LA to New York. Then there was a one-way ticket from New York to London. On London, they hopped on a puddle jumper to go across to the south of France where they needed to go. So they weren't flying directly into Paris and then flying down. They were going from London directly over. And we did that as a return flight. When they got back, we then had them go down to Southampton and get on the Queen Mary. And they had a balcony cabin and did a 7-night cruise back to New York, where they then caught their flight from New York back to LA on miles.
That's perfect.
$1,800 per person.
Holy crap. That's insane.
And that was on a balcony on the Queen Mary. They had a huge sail on at the time.
Wow.
And that particular sailing fell under that sail. It was $1,800 per person.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And it's just And sometimes you got to be a little creative and just, oh, I'm going to fly from here. No. Look at, when you do, like you travel in the shoulder seasons. So fly one way and come back on a cruise ship the other way. Because those repositioning cruises are awesome. And some of them have really good rates when they're bringing the ships from Europe back to the US, to Florida or New York or DC, or they've got the ships coming from Australia and New Zealand up to Alaska for the season. So when they're repositioning the ships around the world for the different seasons and stuff, you get some great deals. If you want to fly one way, spend some time in that country, then hop on a ship and
get an extra vacation out of it.
Absolutely. I'm all about that.
It's transportation and a vacation. What's better than that?
Absolutely. I'm always looking, how can we think outside the box to give somebody a better experience than what they were planning, but without breaking the bank.
Yes.
And still staying within their budgets.
That's great.
Yeah. So cost is dependent on when you're going, when you are going, where you are going, and what sort of accommodations that you want and what you want to see and do while you're there as well. Because some stuff you can actually pre-book in advance for excursions and things, and some you have to book once you get there. So hope that answers your question, Dom. I know it doesn't give you $1 value, but that's the best we can do right now. Yeah. So we've gone past. So Alessia, thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Thank you. This was so much fun.
Oh, I enjoyed it. And because we have such this connection with solo travel for very different reasons that we've done the solo travel and things, I think, I was looking forward to this, having you on. It was great. Yes. So thank you. And you guys have got to go scan this QR code up here so you can join her free masterclass for Make Your World Your Playground, happening on September the 18th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Pacific. Figure out the other ones in between.
Yeah.
6543. There you go. Done. So please go scan the code up here so you can go and join her masterclass, Make the World Your Playground. It is going to be absolutely amazing. And she's got a lot of really good information she's going to give away to you guys.
Yes. Very excited for it.
I'm going to try and join it too.
Yeah, come. And there'll be a replay, so you can register and you'll catch the replay if you can't make it live.
There's replays.
There is. And there's a special something for the people that register. So register and watch the replay.
That's it. I'm going to go register.
Go do it.
I might even scan my own QR code that's sitting up there. Well, thank you again, Alessia. I truly appreciate you taking time out of your evening to come and join us. I know you've had a busy day. For everybody else, thank you for tuning in and watching. Dom, thank you for all your comments and your questions. They were truly appreciated. So
yes, Dom, I miss you. Thank you for coming on.
And we will catch you guys back here tomorrow evening.